Ramblations. 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 Ramblations.
And we're live.
Hello, lovely
Dude.
people. How's it going?
Good afternoon, good morning, good time zone, listener.
Yes.
How's it going, Amelia? How you doing, dude?
Doing pretty good. How about you, my friend?
Good to hear. You know what? It's been a long year. 2020 has been an interesting experience. But before we get into that, why? This is our first episode, so I think it's imperative to answer the question: why should anyone be even listening to us? So, why do you start with that?
Man, I hope we're able to deliver some good vibes, some interesting perspectives, some good conversation while you're driving, washing your car, washing your dishes,
Going for a run,
whatever you're doing. I hope we're able to be those voices that, I don't know, bring you some peace and some interesting perspectives in your life. Why don't we introduce ourselves?
Yeah, so, my name's Daya. I am a programmer in the game industry. I usually tend toward doing gameplay programming stuff. And what about you, Emilio?
Well, yeah, my name is Emilio, also go by Emu. I am a producer in the games industry as well. Went to school with Daya over at DigiPen Institute of Technology. Dragons, what up? Yeah, and we met at school and have been making games in the industry, and it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, and honestly, like, when we came up with the idea to do a podcast because we were sitting at a lunch table one day and we noticed that, like, not only do we like to have long-winded conversations that we thought could be fun to record and, play back ourselves for our own purposes, but for people to maybe listen to and, maybe they'll get some insight. Maybe they'll get some perspective or something. And we felt like people did do that when we were at the lunch table in college and people would come by and sit down. They would be able to jump in and out of the conversation as well. So we thought that was a good vibe for us to try to roll up into a package and see if it hits the masses.
Yeah, and when we're talking about, like, rolling in and out of conversation, we're talking about us sitting there for like 3 hours while literally completely different groups would come in, talk to us, come out, come in, like completely different people, and we just ramble on, talking about all types of different things with different people. It was a good time.
But yeah, I mean, if you're here and you're listening, the things you'll probably encounter are, we'll probably talk about game development. We probably won't go too much into our own personal stories, at least at this point, because, we're still working and stuff like that. And then, yeah, NDAs. But also just like, I think, like, there's a lot of consumer-oriented opinion out there for what games brings to the table. But I think there's, and there is starting to be a lot of game development sided podcasts and stuff like that as well, but I think we can still add something to the field, and that's why we're here. And besides game development, I would say that me and Emilio are both at least semi-experts on things like hip-hop. Definitely there's some niche in fighting games and some other types of games that we both play a lot of that we think we could probably talk about, and they're relative communities. What else, Emilio? You have any other things that we think we can nail?
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to us, like, I feel like we're just men of as like, I don't want to come off as like
arrogant or pretentious
in any sort of way, but honestly I think we're just men of culture. Like, if it's something that is affecting the culture of today, things that were interesting of culture from yesteryears, and just interesting things to talk about, I think we're all about it, right? Whether that be music, whether that be film, whether that be games, of course, and the process that not only goes into creating these things, right, but also what their impact has made on the world and how it makes people feel and how it makes us feel.
Yeah, for sure. I think I don't know. Metaculture is a really interesting term. I think it's more like, I don't want to say the word consumer because I think it's very like, it has a very economical meaning to it, but I think that's honestly what me and you do a lot of. We really do sit down, especially like together as like a group. Like me and you have gone through, like, we go through albums, we go through movies, we go through TV shows, we go through games. Like, we try to consume as much as we can, because I think we both realize it does help our own process for creating, right? Especially because like we will go back and like look at how the process of something is made as well,
100% becomes part of our palette, right?
Yeah.
All art is built off of the backs of previous artists that were building off the back of previous artists. So yeah, it's 100% like it's extremely useful and beneficial, and honestly enjoying to like consume what's going on right now and really be part of this era, right? Understand where people's heads are at creatively and intellectually, spiritually, the whole deal, the whole nine. So yeah,
I think that's like that specific way you put it is also like kind of important, because like, God, where was I going with this? Give me a second. I think that the core of why we wanted to, like, besides like I said earlier, like, I think the core of why we wanted to do a podcast was because we feel like not necessarily that what we talk about is important. It isn't to the grand scheme of things, but it's important to us, and it's interesting. Like, I think podcast is a medium for recording conversation is something that like is explored and thought about, but I think we do a good job with like retaining that thing, right?
For sure. So ramble on with us as these episodes go on, as events in the world go on, and yeah. Happy to have you along for the ride.
The core of what makes a person create is, their the thing that makes people create is their inner being, right? And I think that we talked about this a little bit. Like, the topics we're going to cover. The first topic we want to cover today is like the year 2020. It's been really big. There's been a lot of things. There's a pandemic. Obviously, there's an election if you live in America. And then we're also, for like, if you're a consumer of games and stuff like that, we're on the horizon of a new console cycle, and like there's going to be a lot of features for developers and for consumers to take a look at in that space. So, but yeah, we want to start with like we want to talk about 2020, but we don't want to talk about we don't want to talk about COVID. We don't want to talk about the election. What we actually want to talk about is like we both really felt like that we gained some clarity, whether it was because of quarantine or some other like just we got to do. I personally felt like I got to do internal cleanup. What about you, man?
100%, man. I've been in all my conversations with my friends and family. I have called 2020 the year of clarity, and
yeah,
and clarity. I mean, it could be both a refreshing thing, but also it could be a very difficult thing to handle and
harrowing, right? So some might even say harrowing in some aspects.
100%, man. It's seeing things for what they truly are, in both the good and the bad, right? So. It's been a hell of a year, that 2020 vision. But honestly, to tell you the truth, I feel like it's been an important year for making the future what it needs to be. I think it's going to be I think it'll always be known as a very defining year in many people's lives.
Do you think do you think something led you to the idea of clarity? Because you presented that to me too, right? You brought that, like, I think it was brewing or percolating internally for me, but like I think you shed the light on it. You were like, hey, like, when I think about this year, I think about the clarity I gained. Is there something that brought you to that conclusion? I think
it was basically like maybe like the beginning of quarantine, maybe like a month in, when I just started realizing within myself and also with my friends and stuff, that people just had to deal with themselves and where they were truly at in life, right? Like that first beginning, it was like 2.5 months of 2020 that didn't have the quarantine, because we didn't have COVID and stuff. It was just like it was a time when we're just going through the motions, right? And like that.
Just building on top of that specific idea. Like, I don't know if I told you this, but like, I really felt like during January and February, like those 2 months before things got really hectic in terms of like dealing with the pandemic and all that, was that like for me, I had really built a routine. Like I think in terms of my work life and in terms of my personal life, like I had built a routine that I was really following and I was really enjoying. And then like that had to come to a kind of a grinding halt, and like I had to redefine how I'm gonna deal with life in some aspect, right?
Bro, 100%. I felt the exact same way, man. It was an abrupt stop to all sort of routine, an abrupt stop to any sort of like, for lack of a better word, like rambling through life, where you're just it's a wander. It was just like you're going through the motions, and that's just what it is. And it could be a rush, and everyone was forced to just be like, stop, stay in your house, and you are your own company, or whoever you're living with is your own company.
Yeah.
And I, like, for myself, I live by myself, so it was really just time for me to figure out who the fuck I was. And then it's interesting too, because the quarantine kind of, it made the people that I live near much farther away, but the people that I cared about that lived far away felt so much closer, because we were constantly connected through the internet. And it was like those were the people I saw daily, rather than, going to work and like, oh, yo, there's this person that I see, you know what I mean? Or that person at the gym that it's like, yo, I have all my acquaintances completely lost. You know what I mean? All acquaintances were lost. But like my close people,
well, I think
became those daily people.
I think it's interesting that you put like the inverse idea of like the people that you were physically closest to were the furthest away, and the people that were far away you felt were emotionally closer to you. And I think that comes from like, I think for me it was like when like for like our relationship, for example, like the way me and you communicate with each other through mostly WhatsApp, and like, sometimes we'll see each other in Discord or something like that, but like I think it was like we had the routine of being already like, like every so often checking our phones, message each other, whatever, getting life updates from each other. But that increased because it was the routine that we were used to, and so for a far distance thing, but that made it so we felt closer because we were always constantly communicating or calling each other or something like that.
100%. I mean, yeah, we ourselves had a good, cadence, and like we check on each other. We're friends, right? But it was the fact that the constant connection, right? It's not, oh, yo, I'm driving or whatever, or yo, I'm like I'm at work doing this thing. It's like, dude, I'm constantly on the computer. It's, a very personal space still, and I'm connected, and it's like, yo, you're constantly there. Like, you are only a message away, but even more so. You know what I mean? There's no gym. There's no driving. There's no, oh, yo, I'm driving Lyft after work, or yo, I'm at the beach, or whatever the hell it is. That's you're always a message away, even more so. So,
yeah.
And as serpentine as that sounds, like, the serpent that
eating itself kind of a thing.
Like, as far as like the stranglehold that like I feel like phones and being connected and stuff has on people. It was also a beautiful thing, right? 2020 was a hard year across the board for many different things, right? We witnessed like the largest civil rights movement in history. Like we went through crazy shit this year, and people felt together through the internet. And I think it as much of a problem that it does have as far as like self-control problem and the manipulation that like all these applications and stuff to be able to keep people connected have, their usefulness as a tool, I think, has been shining this year.
Communication aspect, especially, I feel like things like I think there was at one point, especially early on, there was a huge boost to try to get like there were the idea behind like the virtual workspace, right? Like obviously people were like working from home and stuff like that, and that we've seemed to have like across the board. It feels like most companies and whatever, or like workspaces, have found a way to integrate like their usual work from home into a more palatable option for most people. But I think there was also this weird push for like, I saw a lot of things for like, oh, we want to do VR workspaces and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like that's a very futuristic idea that I think is coming to fruition because humanity got pushed to its brink for a little bit.
Yeah. Have you ever tried one of those?
I don't think it would. I'm going off an assumption that I don't think it's for me, but I can definitely like. I think I would at least try it, right? And I don't have a setup at home personally to try it, but like if as time moves on, and my financials shift or whatever, I can make that a possibility if I wanted to, and that would be an interesting thing to engage with. At least right, the experience would definitely be worth it.
Yeah, I was in my freshman year of DigiPen. I got invited to like a VR. What do you call it, like a convention out in Seattle, and yeah, they had a setup like that, and I tried it out, and it was kind of trippy. Like the biggest thing that's I think a hurdle to it. Well, I could explain the thing. It's basically they have like you're inside, and it's like an empty space, and then you could just create windows of different applications, but it's infinite, right? Because it's instead of having 2 monitors or 3 monitors or whatever you're going on, like you could do infinitesimal like screens and shit all around you, like in a complete sphere. So
yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's interesting.
So you're working here. I got Spotify like right over my head if I want to change the track, bong, and then right behind me, like I gotta turn around because I'm like, dude, I need a little break, bro. I got Magic's Gathering going on behind me or whatever the hell it is, and then. I think the biggest hurdle for them was just kind of input, in the fact that like you still need to find your mouse and your keyboard, and being able to type while in that is hard. You have the way they did it. They had a camera over the keyboard and mouse space so that you could see it, and you're like, all right, that's there, and I could still type and see what I'm typing and shit. But
that's interesting.
It's a cool prototype to like what things could get to in the future, but like the rest of VR, and trust me, I'm like a massive believer and super excited about what VR will be.
Yeah, definitely.
But
definitely,
we're not there yet.
I mean, I think just taking a brief aside to talk about VR because we're already there, but like. There's a lot of talk about like a lot of things like platforms need like a killer app, for example, or something like this is the thing that's going to get people to buy it. I think we've kind of breached that a little bit, right? The hype for Half-Life Alyx specifically was really big this year, and I feel like a lot of people like at least tried it out. Not if they didn't have a setup for their own, they tried to figure out a way to like either watch a stream or something like that. And I think it did a good job for like. I think Valve, they're obviously highly invested in this new technology. Like they make the index and stuff like that, and like it seems like they really figured it out for that one title, and they did a good job of like bringing it to fruition. And I think that did honestly have effect on people whether or not they want to, tackle VR in the future.
Hell yeah! I mean, I feel like with Half-Life Alyx specifically, I feel like a lot of the hype was the fact that it was just another Half-Life game when everyone's been like clamoring for a Half-Life 3. But I mean, at the very least though, like you can't deny the fact that Valve was like, look, man, we're selling these $1,000 plus freaking headsets, and we believe in this technology. We want the mass consumer like audience to believe in this technology. Like, we're going to take this shit seriously, and we're making a truly AAA title for this. So, I haven't tried it out, man, but fuck, I want to play that. And I have friends that have played it, and they were blown away. They're just total immersion.
Every single person I talked to that has gotten a chance to play Half-Life Alyx is, like, it's been, like, raving, right? People have just been raving about it, like, honestly.
Yeah, and the day that I eventually jump on that train, that's probably the first thing I'm going to be trying, right? Yeah,
my nephews are looking at building a new PC for themselves, and so because of that, I got into like wish listing, my own stuff. I'm like, my machine's getting kind of old. Maybe I should look at making something for VR, and like, and as I could like, we'll get into this more as we talk about the new consoles and stuff like that. And like, I do want to dive into like the new graphics cards just because like I thought about it a little bit, obviously.
Of course.
But, like, it's interesting what the new technology the capabilities it can bring to a game developer. Going back just for a second to the talk about the clarity thing, or like, just being by yourself, I guess, like, the isolation aspects of, like, the quarantine and stuff like that. I think for me personally, like, I think I found myself consuming a lot of, like, what I would call comfort content, like, things that I've gone through before. I rewatched both Avatar series, Last Airbender and Legend of Korra. I'm in the middle of Malcolm in the Middle, which is like one of my favorite shows from when I was a kid.
Yo,
and so,
did you know, real quick, did you know that this dude does not remember, like Frankie Muniz does not remember recording that show?
It's because of whatever, he has a condition of some sort, right? Like that's it's due to that.
Dude, he was like one of the biggest stars of that time with Malcolm in the Middle.
I mean, the namesake of his character is in the title of the show, and he's like, it's very, the central conceit, like the biggest, especially for the first couple seasons, like the biggest arc of change that's very visible is definitely like Frankie Muniz's character.
Yeah, 100%. It's just, I mean, who I don't know. I don't. You don't know how somebody's life is and stuff, but I mean, it seems like he was enjoying that time, and it's like, I don't know. That sucks. Like, doesn't remember that. But go ahead, continue.
Yeah, but like I think when we like talking about like the clarity aspect of that, like what it shined a light for me was like, I think those types of content really bring me back to the core of the types of things that I want to create, right? I think both Avatar series over the two different times that they came out, like were very formative to me as a child in terms of like my beliefs and stuff like that. And Malcolm in the Middle was very like. It's a look at the lower middle class family in America, especially during the late 90s and early 2000s, right? And like in terms of like dealing with that stuff specifically, it was like, I don't know, like I know what that felt like at the time as well, right? And so like though like the core emotions and the core like elements of those different things, haha, elements. The core, like I think those things really highlighted like the when I see what the creators were going for in terms of what they wanted their creations to really like portray, it makes me think about like in AAA it's a lot harder to get this across in like where I currently work, but like getting into like my personal side projects and stuff like that, what do I want those things to convey? Like what am I trying to, as a creator, what aspects of my personality or my clarity did I want to put into those projects? You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And it's about tapping into like the human experience, right? Whether that be that you're it's a completely alternate reality with like its own world and completely different laws of physics like Avatar and this beautiful mythology of reincarnation. Or is it, I'm a lower class, middle-aged family, just trying to, like, survive growing up in puberty and all that shit. And,
heck yeah.
And a lot of, and honestly, I'm sure there's some topics of coming of age and just being a person and having emotions and having relationships that come across on both shows. And it's just a matter of tapping into that and getting to the core of what people can relate to. And let them know that you're not the only person going through this, and this is the creators' intention of like, hey, like this is maybe a way that you can go, you can overcome this, or you can learn from this, or whatever it is. But
struggle for me and you, I feel like struggle is a theme of a lot of the things we listen to, whether it's like hip hop music is like I always talk about my favorite type of hip hop music is always like it's a story of struggle from coming out of like the situations and things that you've seen, whether it's in your local neighborhood or whatever, or like versus like the bigger woes of what money can bring you and stuff like that, right? Like, and I think that's something that we both find relatable to this aspect. And I think that when it comes to struggle, like the struggle for the whether it was isolation or the pandemic or whatever, it was like very much like we have to get like we will get through this time, right? But it's a question of like how you will get through it and what you will do with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And understanding what kind of content that you want to consume to be able to express whatever you're currently feeling about it, right? Like, for example,
or even enriching your own creative output in some way.
100%. Like for example, with like the whole with like George Floyd and like the recent like basically civil rights movement and recognition that like the protests against the police force and all this, right? Like people dealt with different emotions when they went through that, and the internet has kind of provided this beautiful opportunity where anything you want to be into you can be into because it's all within reach. Everything's within reach, right? So like if you're like, man, like I'm really sad about this, you know what I mean? Like this hurts. Like there's music for that, right? Like Like, ooh, child, things were gonna be easier. Is that your vibe right now? Or are you fight the power? Fight the power. Like, how are you feeling? What's going on there? And I promise you, there's somebody else out there that also felt that way and made something about that, and can inspire you to make things about that.
I don't know if you encountered this, but there's a few like in Spotify and stuff like that. Like there was a lot of creators that were like a lot of music artists put together projects that were like very much labeled like, oh, this is something I made during quarantine, and like it kind of gives you like a sense of like what you might be diving into when you're listening to that album and stuff like that. But I thought it was really cool to see a bunch of like 100. Artists come together to collaborate and even remotely to make some of these really interesting projects.
Dude, Bad Bunny, man. Bad Bunny came out with a critically acclaimed album early 2020. And straight up, like, a couple months later, during quarantine, came out with another fucking banger of an album. And he was just like, they were talking to him about it, and he was like, literally, the world needs music right now. So that's my fucking job. I'm going to make music for people, for my fans, and for people that just need something new to listen to and something new and exciting for their day. And, like, dude, it's dope, man.
Wrapping up, I think we got a sense of, how we feel about clarity, and I hope that like the listener, whoever this reaches, can reflect back on the last couple months and whatever we might have laying ahead until things get better. They have something to maybe like a self-reflection prompt. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely, man. Definitely. You're not alone, and I promise there's people out there that are feeling the same feelings that you are in some capacity. Go exploring, reach out, Twitter and Instagram and all
people,
that.
Tell people that you love them. Tell people you love them. That'll help a lot. It'll help you feel good, and it'll help someone else probably feel good too.
Even if it's like an artist or something that you don't know, like show them some love on their stuff. Like you're like, yo, I really appreciate your music, man. Like we live in a spot where it's like that. Your voice to some capacity will be heard, and it's cool to just give recognition to each other. And as someone who also makes projects and stuff, it feels good to hear.
Yeah. On the other hand, though,
speaking of things that
we've just been through gamer Christmas, my man. Like the consoles are out. The PlayStation 5 is out there in the wild. The Xbox Series X and S are out there in the wild. New gen games are finally coming out, and it's like the start of the new cycle from a consumer aspect is awesome, right? You get to buy a new thing, you get to unbox it. I heard both the unboxing experiences, which is something that people are concerned about. It was interesting for both consoles and stuff like that. But for us as game developers, I think there's other things to look forward to. So I'm curious on like what are the big things that you see in this new console cycle that excites you?
So Papa Wu on Raekwon's album said, was it Raekwon's or Ghostface's? He was like, man, if you don't know where you come from, you sure as hell don't know where you're going. And I feel like the things that I'm excited about are kind of expansions of what, I believe the last console generation, showcased and was able to basically revealed itself in being, right?
For sure.
I feel like Xbox kind of went through a hard lesson,
like a renaissance almost, like a renaissance, right? Like of the brand almost in some way, or like even of the strategy to approach the, I guess gamers would be the word.
100%, and that all came from lessons that came from the beginning, where they're trying to push this. Their game console as a media machine and as a centerpiece of the living room, and talking about television, and cable, and fucking, dude, it's not about that, man. People just want to play some.
Will be the new water cooler.
Yeah, we just want to play some damn games, man. And I feel like they've really stepped it up with Game Pass. Game Pass is massive, man, and I feel like we're about it. We're already seeing a bunch of of people going that same route. Google with their Stadia. I don't know. Are you a YouTube Premium subscriber?
I am not, but I've heard about that deal where if you get YouTube Premium right now, it's like, what, a month free of Stadia, and they give you a free Chromecast and the controller?
Dude, they straight up just hook you. They're like, yo, just please take it. Like take the damn thing. Yo, like Amazon's doing their thing. You know what I mean? Like all these different.
From a speculation point of view, Emilio, I'm curious if like, and you know, this is like more like inside baseball is like the term, I think.
Yeah.
What, like, do you feel like that's like from a business perspective? Do you think that's a bad sign for Google? Do you think that like that indicates toward they're kind of desperate to get, you know, either Stadia into people's hands, or that like it's not doing well? Like, what do you think about that? I'm curious.
What's the there's a different word for monopoly where it's like a small group. Is that an oligarchy, or like I forgot what it's called?
An oligarchy is, well, the formal definition as I know it is it's a form of government, like it's a form of controlling government, I guess, or market maybe, where you have a small group of people that are very in charge, and they usually distribute that power
right. So
themselves.
That's on the political spectrum. So on the business one, it's like olig, whatever it is, but monopoly. Anyways, I've seen interviews.
Alopoly?
Some shit like that. One of those. We're smart, not that smart. But what's it called? But basically, like I've read interviews where they're like, you know, the major three, like Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo, or Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, their competition, their threats that they see, it's not themselves. Like, they already have their footholds in the market. They're already selling their consoles. They have their dedicated fan bases. They're doing their own things, you know? Like, Microsoft and Sony are very happy competing with each other and having that healthy competition that pushes each other to grow.
That business relationship is so wild to me. Like, sorry, I keep talking over you. I don't mean to, but, like, that business, like... Because, like, you know, both... like, I don't know if it's just a social media presence, if they're just trying to, like, make it look like they like each other or whatever. I don't know what that looks like in terms of the actual business boardroom. But, like, they seem very happy to congratulate each other on launches. It's like, it's a very like it reminds me of Steven Spielberg and George Lucas back in the day, right? Like, they would congratulate each other for like, oh, like Titanic did really well. Oh, and then like Star Wars Episode 1 did really well. Like that kind of a relationship unit in a way, you know what I mean?
They're both making money. And neither of them. Just straight up, they're both.
Truth. You heard it here, folks. First, Emilio, breaking news. All console manufacturers are making money.
They're making money, and neither of them are a threat to completely take out the other. You know what I'm saying? Like, both of them are just, it's healthy competition to allow both of them to grow. And Nintendo's doing their own thing. They realize, they're like, yo, that's not our foothold anymore. But we've been destroying in this handheld market. We have already basically this thing that both of you have not touched, or, you know, tried to touch and failed. And you're like, yo, we got this, and we're happy as hell here. We're making money too. And the three of us, neither of us are gonna kill each other. Neither of us are in a position, or honestly, I believe a desire to take the other one out. So we're happy with this little kingdom that we got going on, and we're gonna protect this shit.
Circling back to what we were saying earlier and tying in what you're saying now, it like the three brands, the three big boys, they seem to have like, so PlayStation definitely seems to be like I would almost call it the Apple of consoles in some ways, where it's like it's very much a premium first party experience. Where, you know, you're looking for your Spider-Mans, your Last of Us, and, you know, Naughty Dog titles, your whatever else is out there, right? Even like even their indie titles nowadays, like they have Bug Snacks and stuff like that, which I would say in some aspect is like a premier indie title. And then like Xbox is very much about like, you know, I think Xbox is very much the console for someone that like, if you financially struggle, I think it's the best bet for you. You buy the Series S, you know, especially if you're financially struggling. You buy the Series S, you set that bad boy up. It still does your 1440p. It still does your like whatever 120 frames, I think. It still does your HDR, all that other cool stuff that the other consoles are obviously attaining. But it has you pay your, I think it's like, I don't know what it is for a year of Game Pass. I think it's $120, but like it might be even cheaper for like I don't know 100%.
Dude, they got to the point where you don't even need the upfront cost of it, bro. They have a subscription. I saw this shit like a couple of days ago. They have a subscription where you're literally no down payment. You could either pay $25 a month or $35 a month.
Oh,
and
right.
They straight up give you the console,
yeah.
bro.
Yeah.
They straight up give you the console. Like,
dude, like as a kid, like I remember, like for me growing up, the consoles that were most like prominent in my life was the PlayStation 2 and the Nintendo 64. But for me, it was I bought that one console when it came out, and then every single game I got one. Every single year I got 1 to 2 games, right? Like that's it. And so like to think about the proposition of having your Series S that you can pay for monthly if you're struggling in that way, and then being able to like also pay for a monthly Game Pass. That like there's so many cool games starting on Game Pass, and any first party like Microsoft title ends up on it anyways, right?
First
so
day, bro, on launch.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is about to get even bigger with like like the Bethesda pickup. Like I feel like that's the second largest purchase in video game history, bro. Straight up the second largest purchase.
And then the rumor mill, as soon as they bought Bethesda, everyone was like, they're going to buy a Japanese studio. They were like, oh, they're going to try to go for Capcom or Sega or something. And they also have a good deal with Sega. You know they have a good deal with Sega. They got Yakuza Like a Dragon on their Game Pass, I'm pretty sure.
But so does Nintendo.
Yeah. And then circling back to what we were saying, like, PlayStation is your premium console. Xbox is like your all-arounder, kind of like is doing a lot of, like, is the platform for Game Pass, essentially. Yeah. And then, like you said earlier, like, if you want, like, an interesting experimental, like, your hybrid, or, you're bought into the Nintendo, maybe you have a kid at home or something like that, and you want to buy into that Nintendo brand, you pay your $300,
games
you
on
your
the
Switch,
go.
Right?
Yeah, like...
Yeah.
Any of it. Dude, I feel like, honestly, like, if you just like gaming at all, and regardless if you have a PlayStation, Xbox, or banging PC, like, I can't recommend the Switch enough, dude. Like, that console, as far as value and just all the different things that are on it, and just the way that it approaches, just like, it's just I don't know, it's an easy purchase, man. And you're getting some quality exclusives on that. And so it's exactly that. Each player plays their part, and each player is not stressing the other about their existence. You know what I mean? No, like you think back on like the console wars of like Sega and Nintendo, and it was very much like, yo, we're trying to like exterminate you. Like we are gonna take over the market. Like your days are numbered type of deal. And that's not the case anymore. And it's instead turned into this competitive collaboration where they're just like, look, like, we're chilling and making money. Ain't nobody else coming in here. Like, nobody.
And even talking about like what I think like back in the Nintendo v Sega days, there was also a population thing, right? You wanted the having a share of the console market was much more important than I think it is today, because the population is like, it's like, year over year, it's just blown up. There's so many people that play games now. It doesn't matter if you play on your phone. Doesn't matter if you play on your Switch. Doesn't matter if you play on your PC or your console or what have you. The number of people that are spending money on games, or that is their time, that is the thing that they're using to pass their time, is ridiculous compared to years prior.
100%, man. It's a beautiful thing to see. I've told you before, man, and my biggest hope during my time in the games industry in my life is like, I really hope to see games finally being recognized alongside every other kind of content, man. Like, I feel like games are just as important as literature. I feel like games are just as important as film. Like, it's just a different medium. You know what I mean? And I think we're slowly getting to that. You know what I mean? Like when you have like major Hollywood actors making, like commercials about not just commercials for games, like where they're acting it. I'm talking about like sitting them down and talking about personal
Jordan
experience.
saying he wants MVC2 on PS5.
That's exactly what I'm doing. Yo, Michael B. Jordan, man. If you're listening, dude, MVC2, that's that jam. Let me know when you want to play. We'll throw down. Probably whoop my ass. But yeah, man, like where it's just becoming this norm, and honestly, like, I don't know, it's great. Like the kinds of maybe with games, you're not gonna. Even then though, there's an experience for everything, dude. You want to learn how to build a computer? There's a fucking building computer simulator on Steam, man. You want to have an emotional experience about like being transgender. They have like what is it? Life is Strange and stuff. Like there's so many different experiences as you would from from film or from literature or whatever it is about making you either feel something, learn something, or like my favorite way to experience it is like empathy machines, right? Like putting yourselves in the shoes of somebody else and living it, not just watching it, not just reading about what they're going through, but you actually moving them through this process and joining them for the ride and actually controlling them through it, and and being an active director.
The level of agency and personal like identification you can kind of get when you're controlling an avatar is very different than like reading about it or like watching a movie about it. But like I don't want to discredit any of the other mediums, because like they also do well what they do, especially with their well made their own well made like iterations of those things. But like it is different. It is very different, especially in the game design space, I would say.
Yeah, 100%. I just hope that it's also gets to the point where it's recognized as one of those same kind of like arts that are important, right? Which
I think and this is like, I think this is like talking about things that are, I don't even know how to describe this phenomenon or like how to even qualify it, I guess. But like there's things like the BAFTAs and stuff like that, and they do recognize games as art, and I think that slowly that they're going to push. They help push the artistic appreciation and criticism and the artistic eye upon video games, I guess is the best way to put it.
For sure. And as far as like kind of like I was saying, like you gotta look back to your past and to get to the future. Like I think the last generation specifically of games, as far as like on the software side, were really about capturing emotional experiences and making people feel something. And and it's been a talked about feature for the PlayStation's controller, but people are kind of iffy as if it's going to be really heavily implemented. But man, the haptics on the DualSense, I'm such a believer in good haptics, man. And from what I've heard, like basically, if you don't know what haptics is the way that this the controller vibrates. It's kind of like how the technology on your cell phones these days, like. Whenever you type something, like you feel that click, right? It's obviously
localized, kind of like, yeah.
It's not that primitive. Just like the whole thing vibrates. It'll still have that, but like it's not that. It's the subtle feeling that makes you believe that you're actually pressing something or feeling something like with your hands, right? With your sense of touch. And from what I've heard, the implementation on the DualSense has been fantastic. Like, I was reading.
It's not only just the haptic feedback, but they also doing. I don't know if you heard about this, but like even when you're using the triggers, it will tighten the. You can add like I don't know, like I guess a bow would be a good example in a video game, but like as you press it down, it gets harder and harder to press down
until you release, and then it's super soft. Yeah.
Which I think that's like I think we talked about this briefly before in just in our personal conversations, but I'm kind of curious on like how do you think that stuff like what do you think the prevalence of those mechanics will be in throughout the like the larger, even in AAA or in the indie space? Like, do you feel like the haptics thing will be used a lot, a little? Like, what do you think the benefit and the benefit that developers can squeeze out of it, and what do you think like is the negatives of even approaching it and stuff like that, I guess?
Well, I mean, currently that level of haptics is only really available on both PlayStation now and on Nintendo. So that being said, like anything that's really cross platform, it's going to be a little difficult to make the case to be like, we're going to have someone hired and they're going to be our haptics designer. You know what I mean? But for first party PlayStation titles, like AAA titles, I have no doubt in my mind that we're going to start seeing positions where it's haptics designers. You know what I mean? Like some sort of artist that it's like, yo, like your job is to make sure that when I'm walking across some stone, it's going to feel like stone. Or when, for this pivotal moment where, you're giving a hug to somebody, or like you're going to feel that shit or whatever sort of there has that position. I don't know what it'll be called, because straight up we haven't been able to figure out development titles of like roles and shit still in the 40 plus years that this industry has existed. but
I mean,
I feel
it's
like
also constantly
Sassi
evolving, right? Like you have your tech artists that didn't exist as much, I think, a few years ago and stuff like that. Like, like the variety of the roles and what they each like the disciplines they'll cross over is like it's gotten very intense.
100%, man, 100%. So, personally, super long-winded way to get here, but yeah, man. Honestly, I feel like haptics and the emotional response, like the emotional response that we're gonna get from some games, through that is honestly my that's my most anticipated, most exciting thing for me about the next generation. How about you?
I like kind of building just quickly kind of building on what you're saying. I do like to, and I'm not trying to rag on like Xbox for this, but like it seems that like Switch has its HD feedback or whatever they call their
HD Rumble.
HD Rumble, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like Sony's got its like cool new triggers and haptic feedback, but we haven't heard. I personally haven't heard, and it doesn't seem like they're marketing like the Xbox doesn't seem to be approaching those things specifically. I think it seems much more like the game box, right? Like it's very much more of a straightforward game box,
And that's okay. I mean, like that being said,
totally fine.
I doubt, if anything, Xbox was the one that was last generation. By far, they had the best controller. Like the Xbox, the work that they did on the Xbox 360 controller, like it's still being felt. It defined what controllers feel like today, right? Like there's just the ergonomics of it. Like they did that heavy lifting back then, and they refined it with the Xbox One.
Dude, I've talked to a lot of people that use the Elite controller, and like a lot of people that like arthritis, people that suffer from arthritis and other conditions, where like having those paddles and stuff on the back for like the Elite controller specifically, like that's a really good value for them, 100%. And it really makes it easier for them to specifically play video games.
Dude, and what's the name of that controller that they came out for? That it was like super modifiable. That like
the Elite. That's what I'm talking about.
Not that one. It was the other one that they made. It was like it's a flat one.
The one with the two giant buttons and all that other stuff.
Yes.
The adaptive controller, I think.
Controller. That thing. I'll look it up. Yeah, the adaptive controller. You're totally right. That thing. I mean, like what Xbox did there, like, cannot be understated as far as like just being inclusive. And I feel like as far as a brand, that's kind of the position they're trying to do, is just inclusivity, right? It's just breaking down barriers.
Honestly, they've done a really good job with it, because I feel like that's one thing that Sony will definitely eat a lot, is like they need to realize that they need to also make it like, yes, they have their premium console, yes, they have their premium games, they're about that first party stuff, but like that doesn't mean that you can discount people that like do suffer from conditions that make it harder for them to play video games. I think PlayStation does need to up that part of their brand.
Yeah, 100%. I like, for the adaptive trigger specifically, I really hope that's something that you can toggle on and off. Like, because if someone's already struggling with a trigger that regular, imagine something that's being tightened up, right? So, but that's kind of where I was getting to with the core. It was just like, these are three people that are not three people. These are three
corporations.
Three corporations,
conglomerates, no,
that are making their money. But they're innovating on different fields, man, and they're both they're both benefiting from each other's discoveries, and that's that. Like I'm sure I don't know, obviously, but I have a hunch that like some sort of PlayStation person saw the HD Rumble and was like, yo, that shit's dope, and nobody's using it. Like, that we need that. You know what I mean? We could use that.
If we add it to our platform, hopefully that means that it'll be more pervasive, etc. It drips down, right? It keeps going from there.
100%. Xbox, a little bit. They put a share button because they're like, yo, everybody else got that, and people are using it. Dope. That's a piece of technology. Like, it's just solving the puzzle, right? And just solving what, it's solving different parts of the puzzle on their own fronts and coming together and strengthening themselves.
A lot of tech enthusiasts have said that the future of game consoles seems to be going the way of the phone, where like they're going to get to a point where it's very much you buy a new console for the quality of life. I don't know if we're that close to that kind of experience yet, but I think like this console jumping from the Xbox One, PS4 to the PS5 and the Xbox Series stuff, that is a big thing. I think quality of life has been a really big push. You know, Xbox has this quick resume thing, and PlayStation has something very similar, but not as like good as from what I hear. And also, like, you know, they have both them using SSDs and M.2 drives and all whatever like specialty stuff they have. Like, it's definitely very much aimed toward like we know that players want shorter load times. We know that people want to be able to flip through games quickly. Like, it very much, I feel like that quality of life thing is very much being emphasized now.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. The PlayStation where they have like the hints, basically, like, you know, they're making it so that you don't have to go
game
online.
facts. They put game facts out of business,
dude. It's incredible, bro. It's cheat code central on your computer. Like, you remember that shit? Cheat code central. Get my
dude, ccc.com. That's how I get all my stuff.
Get my Grand Theft Auto cheat codes. Yeah, bro, they got it built into the damn system. And I totally get where you're coming from. That being said, though, there was that fantasy, I believe, before like this generation came out, where they're like, oh, you know, the next one, like, we're not gonna have console generations and this. But I don't think we're there, dude. Like, when alongside the same time that they're coming out with these new consoles, like, you have, you know, computer hardware manufacturers coming out with shit that already blows it out of the water, like. Dude, like, it's that's not what a console is, man. It's about getting basically a computer that is super specific on playing the kind of software that it's going to play, and it's going to work, and it's standardized, and it's just going to continue evolving as the same way computers evolve, and it'll just.
I think the PlayStation, specifically like that thing you're kind of talking about, like how like it's very much emphasized on making, like, yes, it is a computer architecture in some aspects, but it's also like you want to take that architecture and push it more towards what games will accomplish, right? Like, I think they showed it off with the Ratchet and Clank, like the what they're doing with the quick level swapping and stuff like that, which I think is like, you know, they're in terms of design space, things like Titanfall 2 have accomplished something similar, but it seems like that's going to be much more prevalent with the. Like, you'll be able to load in bigger assets or whatever with the new types of storage that we're kind of dealing with now.
Yeah, I can't wait, man. It's expensive as shit, dude. When you're talking about like, yo, you want to expand this limited memory, you know, by like another terabyte, and it costs like almost as much as the fucking console. That's crazy. Yeah. But hey, man, like the benefits I think are being felt on day one. So.
Yeah, and you also you asked me a little earlier. What started this tangent is you were asking me what like I'm looking forward to in terms of the consoles.
Yeah,
I think like the expansion of power is interesting. I think we're also seeing it in the consumer computer hardware market. You know, with the new 30 series cards and like, you know, like even like AMD's jumping on with their new Radeon stuff as well. I think the more power, obviously, like, it leads to more triangles on the screen, right? You get your more tries, you can get more beautiful stuff, right? But I think we're getting close to the point where, like, you know, especially with RTX and like being able to do ray tracing, like the consoles all do ray tracing now. We're getting to the point where, you know, water looks a lot better, reflection and lighting looks a lot better. We're able to do high dynamic range, so you can like in darkness, lighting looks better than it used to. But I think the actual design, like the things that affect all like game developers more, are gonna be like. With the extra power, I hope we see things like better AI, for example.
Hell yeah.
An example from the last console generation that kind of adheres to this is the Shadow of Mordor on the few last gen consoles that came out, like the PS3, Xbox 360 stuff versus the PS4 and Xbox One stuff, was they couldn't use the Nemesis system on the older consoles because it just didn't have the power to deal with it. So I'm interested in seeing, like, I'm really hoping that that's what like the big innovations come from, is the extra bandwidth of power allows us to do more interesting things, whether it's AI or, and I think the graphics processing stuff is obviously going to happen, but I'm hoping that they're like, it does, like you said, like with the level and like the having that extra storage for like level design and stuff could also be interesting, right?
Yeah, hell yeah, man. Yeah, and it's I think the core also of like, at least what I got where you're saying is the most exciting things that are gonna come out are things that we can't even fathom yet, right? Like just cause of extra power, it's like what innovation is gonna come out of this? You know, the innovation,
like, I think
isn't the power; it's
like
what comes off of the power.
Mm-hmm. I think in the past like a lot of innovation in game development has come from trying to deal with the constraints around not having power.
Yeah.
A good example is Silent Hill, the first Silent Hill game. The reason they have so much fog in the game is because draw distances are very short for the amount of stuff they have on the screen, but it also added to the horror aspects of the game, right? I think the GameCube version of like one of the NFL games, they did a really interesting trick for how they deal with memory. So because they would cache things and make it so you can load stuff faster. I don't remember exactly, so don't quote me on that, I guess.
Yeah.
But like, I'm interested in seeing like what happens when we punch through the current amount of power we have, and what interesting trickery we're going to do to try to squeeze every single like bit out of these new consoles and new hardware and new cards and stuff like that.
And honestly, it's a beautiful like that gradual opening up of limitations is actually a beautiful thing for our industry, right? And the fact that like, imagine if you know back in the 80s and shit they had PS5s, like, and it started with that. It's like, what the fuck, like what the fuck are they going to be building on this, right? Like the methodology is not there, and the fact that limitations are slowly opening up, that it slowly expands, allows a more sophisticated approach of properly utilizing what the new limitations are and building off of the old ones, right? And understand and appreciating when certain limitations are taken off, and really pushing that for what it is, because it was something that was always dreamed of and can conceptually happen, but because of limitations, it wasn't possible, right? So, yeah, I hear you, and I'm excited too, man.
But yeah, I think that, we're about an hour in, so that'll wrap it up for our topics of talk today. Before we're done with the episode, do you have anything you want to share with the audience? Is there like an album or a movie you recently watched, something, some type of content that you think people can look into?
Yeah, so first episode to go up on stream. This is a segment that we like to have at the end, where basically it's dope things that we'd like to recommend to you, dope shit to check out. And basically things, it could be old, new, whatever, just something cool that we have experienced recently that we'd like to put on you to check out after this. Personally, I watched a movie again yesterday. It was like my second or third time watching it, but man, it just it hits me every time. It's called Searching for Sugar Man. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
It's not on Netflix anymore, right?
No, it isn't. So I bought it on YouTube.
Yeah.
I sure bought that movie. I was like, I'm still watching this. I don't care. I'm watching this damn movie. It's it used to be on Netflix. It's no longer on there. You could get it you could rent it or buy it on Amazon Prime or Vudu or YouTube, whichever storefront you buy from. But it's definitely a highly recommended movie. It's a story about an artist. I don't want to give away too much because it's truly a beautiful story. But basically, it's about a musician that gave it his all, came out with truly beautiful art, was completely undiscovered, and within that entire time of just kind of leaving the music industry, his art took on a life of its own and was massive. It was huge for a whole other country, and he had no idea.
Damn.
Definitely check it out. It's beautiful stuff, and you'll discover a really great artist, Rodriguez. Incredible music.
Yeah, mine's a little less awesome, honestly.
Oh man,
I just watched Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure with my nephews, who are they're 12, and one of them's 13. The other one, one of them's 13. The other one's 11. No, he's turning 12 soon, and I showed them Bill and Ted Excellent Adventure for the first time, and they were, for a movie made in 1989, they really enjoyed it. They're like, man, like they actually they're like, oh wow, I'm surprised it was made in 1989. I was like, that's it, there it is, and we had a good time with that one. And I think it's good for like if you need an extra laugh in your life or something like that. You need some excellence. You need a party on, dudes.
Hell
You should check out that.
I've never seen any of them, man. I feel like I should go back and watch those.
I copped a deal yesterday. It was $5 to buy on whatever storefront I was looking at the time, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna pay $5 to watch Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
I'm gonna sit down with my nephews, eat some popcorn, and and watch this damn movie.
I mean, they were sad after they got beaten Magic by me, so I wanted to make them feel happy again.
Hell yeah. In part.
But yeah, were you gonna say?
I was just saying, man. Like in part, the
there.
things that you think are cool on the kids that look up to you, man. Yeah, like I honestly feel like I'm doing what I'm doing now because of the people in my life before that were just like, yo, I think this is cool. You might find this cool. Let me teach you about it. So,
I mean that the best thing you can provide to the people around you are the experiences that made you feel good. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's a huge part of being a functional member of society almost.
Hell yeah. And I hope we made you guys feel good.
Yeah, and I hope that you come back around for whenever we, get into our routine so we can make the second episode happen and not take forever to do it.
Yes. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Well, that's it for Ramblations. And yeah, goodbye, good luck, and have fun, I guess. The gamer way. Good luck, have fun.
We need a catchphrase, some wobble lubba dub dub that we can close. Oh man.
Maybe not today, but hopefully soon. But yeah, have a good one, guys.
Bye.